Okay, well, I think it's just on 7:05. So why don't we uh, launch Sarah so welcome to our guests tonight, to Larry and Sarah and Natasha and Jill. It's our pleasure to have you here this evening, and I would like to introduce you to Sarah Porter, who's the irrepressible partnership manager for Wild Earth Travel. And we're very lucky to have Sarah here to tell us some of her adventures that she's experienced in both the polar areas. So thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Linda, and thank you for this opportunity. I think it's good to understand who Wild Earth Travel is and what we do. We're sort of like the best friends in the background for Larry and Linda at the team at World Travellers. We're a small ship specialist company. We've had over 30 years' experience in this industry, and we are New Zealand owned and operated by the gentleman at the top, Aaron Russ. He's worked on expedition ships. His parents actually started Heritage Expeditions, a New Zealand owned expedition company 40 years ago. And he's worked on ships all over the world as an expedition leader. So he saw the need over a decade ago to set up a specialised company to support our travel industry. In the last count, we actually look after over 70 operators, 250 vessels, about 600 destinations, and over 2,000 itineraries. So I'm certainly not going to go into them all, but it does give you the confidence that you're dealing with people who have been there, done that, and got the experience and the knowledge and the expertise when it comes to small ships and expeditions all over the world. We certainly do pride ourselves on knowing the polar regions inside out and back to front. I've had been fortunate enough to go to both the regions. If I don't know enough, then I phone a friend, as Aaron's led over 100 expeditions down to Antarctica. And tonight we are focusing on these polar regions, and I think the first lesson is a geography one. This is kind of stems a whole lot of the appeal of both regions stems from a simple geography lesson. So the Arctic is actually a frozen ocean surrounded by different continents and different countries, whereas Antarctica is a frozen island, if you like, frozen continent surrounded by ocean, and it's never been inhabited. So when you understand, though, that basic geography lesson, a lot of other things fall into place when it comes to the wildlife, the culture or the lack thereof, and so forth. I was fortunate enough to go to Antarctica a few years ago. Believe it or not, you can only go one time of the year, which is our summer. That's when it's only accessible. But believe it or not, there are different seasons to Antarctica. So obviously when you get down there early in the season, it's very pristine. You can expect a very white and pristine environment. As the season unfolds, penguins begin to hatch, the whales start heading down there. And towards the end of the season, you've got more access further south, but you've just got to be warned that you smell the penguins before you see them, because everything gets a bit slushy towards the end of the season. But obviously those seasons has a lot of different appeal. Certainly if you're into photography or you're looking for some sort of particular wildlife, then it is important to look at the seasons. There's also different ways to get to Antarctica. The quickest, the cheapest, and the most popular is to fly to South America and leave from Ushuaia. Over 24 vessels do this, and they do what's called the Antarctic Peninsula. Of course, you're crossing the Drake Passage. If if you can afford the time and the luxury, definitely consider adding on South Georgia and the Falklands. South Georgia is where you get these amazing king penguins. These penguins very rarely, I was lucky enough to see one that had kind of strayed down in Antarctica, but you see them in the absolute tens and hundreds of thousands in South Georgia. And of course, South Georgia and the Falklands have incredible history in those islands as well. Believe it or not, you can also fly down to Antarctica. A lot of people have the fear of crossing the Drake Passage. It can be the Drake Lake, it can be the Drake Shake, but there is the option. And also people who are a bit time poor, perhaps, you can fly down to Antarctica and get on the ship down there. We also have options from New Zealand as well. So I was fortunate enough to travel with Ponant on board Le Soliel, which is one of 4 of their vessels that head down there over the season. They are a French-flagged vessel, and somewhat luxurious, that's for sure. You get very spoilt with the amenities and the service on board. Our first couple of days were spent crossing the Drake Passage. On a good passage, it takes about 36 hours, but you're never bored. We were fortunate enough to call it the Drake Lake when we headed down, and we even tested out the treadmills. We could actually walk quite swiftly. And as you can see by that image, the seas weren't too rough at all. You're also busy over that time. You're getting your jackets, you're getting your gear, and you're actually getting to know the ship and what you're in for over the next few days. Our first landing was at Robert Point, which is actually in the South Shetland Islands. And immediately you come across the incredible wildlife. It is an absolutely magical moment where you step ashore and you're greeted not only by penguins, but by the seals. And again, dare I say, you often smell them before you see them. Penang also have a wonderful way of surprising and delighting passengers. And this day in particular, they set up a champagne bar on an actual ice floe, which was pretty magical as well. So they call it the Penang moment. For me, the ice was something that was amazing as well. I have to confess, I'm rather solar powered. If I had the choice, I'd rather go to a tropical island and scuba dive in 26 degrees. So I always said that I was very much a litmus test for Antarctica and who would enjoy it. And I absolutely thoroughly loved it. And ice was something that I just couldn't get over. The differences in the icebergs, the different colours, the different textures. If I look back now through my photos, I literally have hundreds and hundreds of photos of ice. You've got these penguins, and you just don't know. There is rules and regulations. Of course, the Antarctica is governed by a treaty. But of course, the penguins don't always get the memo as well. So you have these magical encounters where you can just sit still and Mother Nature comes to you. When you're on board these vessels, you also get the chance to head out in the Zodiac. On average, you do 1 or 2, either a landing or a Zodiac cruise a day. Numbers are very, very important in Antarctica because they only let 100 people on the ice at any place at any one time. But that doesn't mean that you can't all be off the vessel. So what it does mean is when you've got vessels, say up to 200 passengers, 100 people might do a landing, and then the others are doing Zodiac cruising. Believe it or not, I compare this to a safari jeep in Africa. Being in a Zodiac, you actually don't know what you're going to see. You don't know that you're in the sense of vastness in this amazing landscape, and you just don't know what wildlife you're going to come across. So a Zodiac for me is actually quite similar to a safari jeep in Africa, and it fills your soul in the same way when you do get to experience the wildlife and the scenery. Of course, the whales are also a massive attraction down there in Antarctica, and again, there is seasonality to it. And when you do landings, we have the privilege to go to a few of the stations as well, and there is one opportunity usually to have a bit of retail therapy, so you can head along. Not only do you have the amazing history in these huts, but you can send a postcard home. Not quick, I can tell you that, and the chance to buy a few souvenirs. And you wouldn't believe it, but right outside these huts, again, you've got wildlife at its best. As our captain would say, the destination, the show is outside. You know, on all these smaller expedition ships, it's not about the buffets. It's certainly not about the cabaret shows. It's the wildlife is certainly the show. And seeing these baby penguins was just so incredible. And you're seeing it and experiencing it with incredible people. So the people who are driving your Zodiacs, the people who are doing the lectures are all qualified zoologists, geologists, penguinologists, whaleologists. They're every kind of ologist you need to really enhance your experience down there. There's historians. You'll always be in an English-speaking Zodiac as well, even if it is multilingual on board. But they're there really to enhance your experience, and you learn. I'm certainly a lifetime learner. And you come away with so much knowledge, and they share their experience and their expertise in their different fields. A highlight day for me was when we were in, it was actually called Paradise Bay. And this was their version of the polar plunge in Antarctica at the time. And they certainly put on a great afternoon where we got to have a swim. And believe me, it wasn't cold. The amount of people who tell me that Antarctica is not cold. If you enjoy a good day up the mountain, then Antarctica is no different. And when the sun's out, it's, you know, you can certainly feel sun-kissed, that's for sure. That afternoon, we did probably the tallest and the hardest hike. Now, you don't need to, but as you can see, paths were cut heading up the mountain to an absolutely stunning vantage point. But you don't have to do that if you don't want to. So a lot of the activities on board the various ships and with the various operators, they're all optional. And if you just sit down on the shoreline, as I said earlier, you know, there's certain rules and regulations when it comes to the wildlife, but the penguins don't get that memo. And if you sit still, then they come to you, which is rather special. That was just taken on my phone, but it just goes to show how close they get. And this was an evening that I will never forget. We were just sat down for dinner, and the captain announced that we had some humpback whales bubble net feeding. Now, I'm not sure if you know what bubble net feeding is, but it's when they blow bubbles around the krill and then they dive down and then they jump up with their mouths wide open to eat the krill. So this went on for several hours. A few people stayed at dinner. Most of us went out onto the decks with our jackets and our beanies on and armed with our phones and our cameras. And we had the most amazing, amazing spectacle of these humpback whales. So incredibly close to the boat. The boat basically just hovers and stays still. We're certainly not encroaching on their space. But we were so close that when they did come up and blow, there were a couple of times we actually got their spray, which was pretty magical. So that was certainly an evening worth skipping dinner for. There were about a dozen of us who stayed out there till about 11 o'clock at night, because again, you've got the beauty of the, you know, no nighttime. You've got the midnight sun down there. And we enjoyed this whale spectacular. And the captain actually turned around and asked us when we had had enough before he could move on. And this is, I actually took a photo of the chart. So as you can see, we were heading along where we came across the whales, and he basically, it looks like a kid scrawled on his chart, but he basically, you know, just kept the boat around the whales so we can enjoy that incredible moment. One of our last landing in Antarctica was at Deception Island. And I'm not sure if you're too familiar with the history and the heritage, but there used to be an old whaling station at Deception Island. And you actually cruise in through the gap there and you're inside a crater. And it's also volcanic. So it's actually, there's warm water there as well. So having the privilege to step in these places, knowing that so few people do get to do that, is absolutely magical. And I have to confess, I was actually quite emotional having that last landing there on Deception Island, knowing the history of the place, but also having the wildlife still so ingrained there as well. The Drake Passage on the way home wasn't as calm. We got the Drake Shake on the way home. You can see by that weather system. But one thing you need to be reassured of is these boats, these different vessels are built for these conditions. They have the stabilizers. It did get a bit rocky, but we certainly all came back in one piece. And of course, you've got the expertise of the captain and the crew who read the weather systems. We left half a day early to avoid the height of the storm. And let's just say I didn't put my high heels on for the captain's dinner on that last night. Everyone was a bit rocky, but hey, it's part of the adventure as well. Heading to the other continent, I had the immense privilege of going to the Arctic last year, which was absolutely incredible. And like Antarctica, there are, even though there's seasons, there's different highlights to the times that you can go there. So there are different seasons to the Arctic. And it depends. I always say it all depends on your why. Why do you want to go to the Arctic, or why do you want to go to Antarctica? And that's when the experts at World Travellers will actually help figure out the right time for you to go, the right vessel for you to go on, the right itinerary for you to choose, and of course that right time of the year to go as well. So you can access the Arctic at all times of the year, but it certainly changes as the year goes. The other things that make it a little bit more complicated is the Arctic is actually 6 different nations, and unlike Antarctica, they all have their different rules and regulations as well. So again, that's when you need the expert advice of your agents and brokers at World Travellers, who can again figure out your why and then send you to the right place at the right time, on the right vessel to make the most of your experience. I was fortunate enough to head to the east coast of Greenland right at the beginning of the season last year, when it was still quite solid ice, in and out of Reykjavik. And what you'll see here, this is a great example of the fact that you actually don't know what you're in for. Expedition is, you're heading off there, and there's actually an Inuit quote that says only the ice and weather will decide. So you can see there it's got days 8 to 10, exploration, days 11 to 13, exploring. So you kind of know the general direction you're heading in, but you really, really don't know what you're in for until you get there. I travelled on Le Commodore Charcot, which is the world's only luxury icebreaker. Very much a treat. It was an incredible vessel, but the big thing is it took you to the most incredible places because we had the capability to break the sea ice. It was a long trip. It was 42 hours from home to hotel, flying from Auckland via Doha to Oslo and then on to Reykjavik in Iceland. And I was fortunate enough to take a friend with me. So that was us in Iceland boarding our new home for 2 weeks. And after a day, you could kind of see the weather was changing. We got well equipped with our gear, and the sea and the ice changed considerably as we made our way north. It was very unusual, but we were actually doing some drills as well with the Danish Navy. So on the voyage, it was quite incredible. We had this Danish frigate with us that we did some safety and survival drills with, which I found absolutely fascinating. And I might have to confess that we actually had to help her get out of the ice one day. So it just shows you the capability of our incredible vessel, that we actually had to rescue the Danish Navy. As you get further north, looking down and seeing polar bear footsteps was just a moment that you hold your breath. I said to Linda earlier, the footsteps alone are the size of a dinner plate. And I think it's everyone's dream, to see a polar bear. Little did I know what was coming up. So we had the opportunity to do some ice landings as well. So get off the vessel. This is when they did some of the safety testing and things, which was really, really interesting. And we did some snowshoeing, and to actually park up in the ice like that was a real privilege, because of course down in Antarctica you don't always get that solid ice where you can step from the ship straight onto land. I tried my hand at kayaking as well. Again, I was very scared at first because me and balance do not go well together. And the only time I'd kayaked was really in 26 degrees water in the tropics. But you're in really, really safe hands. You're well guided the whole time. And you've obviously got all the safety equipment as well. And kayaking through the icebergs is something that you just will never forget. So one afternoon, we spotted a polar bear, which for us was pretty special. There's a couple of Inuit guides on board. They're actually Inuit polar bear hunters. And their job through the voyage is to spot the polar bears. One of them, Scoresby, can see them over 5 kilometres away with his naked eye. And he spotted a bear. Little did we know that there was more than one bear. We counted something that I think would leave David Attenborough quite jealous of. There was actually a dead whale carcass, which brought out the bears. So this was per chance. We basically changed course because we were heading into Itudakatumiat, but we couldn't break through the ice. So we changed course, and only the weather and ice would decide. but we had the incredible 48 hours of seeing polar bears in their natural habitat. We stopped the vessel. Again, you've got expedition crew who are all experts. In 48 hours, I became a polar bear expert as well because I didn't sleep and I spent the whole time on the deck with the team. But we saw one set of triplets. We saw two sets of twins. I'm not sure if you're aware, but that's quite unusual because with polar bears, for the male bears to get back in business with the female, there can't be any cubs around. So it's actually quite common for the males to eat the cubs. So it was a wonderful thing to see that we saw the triplets as well as two sets of twins. And because the bears weren't hungry, they had this whale feast, and we saw the most incredible behavior because even though they're solo, they don't operate in packs. They all had food bellies. They were all in food comas. So when we stopped the vessel, this was actually taken at 2 o'clock in the morning. They became very, very inquisitive and came to the vessel, which was absolutely amazing. But you can see, they're not fighting. The males weren't territorial. They're not fighting over the girls. They're not eating the cubs. So a lot of the behavior we saw was quite unusual. And just this was taken on my phone. I don't think the sound's working for some reason, but when a polar bear comes this close and you hear the sound of their footsteps, it is truly magical and something that I never in my life thought I would ever experience. And you can understand why I lived on espresso coffees and didn't go to sleep for 2 days. On top of the wildlife, again, Ponant have the way of creating incredible, meaningful moments and memories. One night we had the privilege where they set up the helicopter deck for dinner one night. We all rugged up, but you can imagine having live music and an incredible cuisine brought out to you. And this was actually the dessert buffet, which rose from the helicopter hangar, which was just incredible. But yeah, there's certainly plenty of surprise and delight moments on board. And sometimes you just think, wow, how can the day get better? And they'll always figure out a way to make it better. I am silly enough, game enough, I don't know what you want to call me, but did the polar plunge off the vessel when they offered it. You do have to be tied on and you do have to have medical clearance. And to be honest, when you look at that photo, it kind of doesn't look cold enough. So we had a challenge up our sleeves. We did some more Zodiac cruising, and again, being in the Zodiac's just an incredible way of experiencing the landscape on a different level. And because we didn't think that polar plunge was hardcore enough, we asked the captain if we could actually do it the real way, where they cut a hole in the ice. So you can see that tiny wee square on the left-hand side in the ice. It took 3.5 hours with a chainsaw to cut it. And it probably took me more than 3.5 hours to actually consider doing it. But a few of us silly ones jumped in again in the ice when and did the polar plunge. That time it was -3 degrees. So we certainly earned our badge for that one. We did some polar hiking as well. It's very, very different to Antarctica, that's for sure, because a lot of the time you are on sort of a scorier ground and not the ice. And it was hot. Again, people think the polar regions, you're going to be freezing cold. It is cold when you jump in the ocean. But on a bluebird sunny day, it's absolutely magical. And by the end of that hike, we'd stripped off every layer that we possibly could. A bit more kayaking as well to top off an incredible voyage. One thing we never got to experience because the ice and weather was so tight and we couldn't get into Itadakatumiat, and a massive appeal for the Arctic region is the culture. So again, that's when the expert team from World Travellers can help. We can, if your bucket list tick is to experience the culture, then we send you to the right place on the right vessel at the right time of the year for these magic moments. And the vessel I was on, the Commodore Charcot, also has the ability to go to the true North Pole, which no other passenger vessel can go to as well. So if that's on your bucket list tick, she can also go to the magnetic North Pole as well. Life on board these vessels, look, to be honest, we represent a whole host of different operators, everything from expedition, true expedition, you sort of ex-Russian research vessels, right through to luxury. For a taste of Penant, I can certainly say you're not going to starve. You get served the most incredible meals. A lot of the time you have the option of a la carte as well as buffet, so you might get a great steak. But hey, if you feel like a burger for lunch, it's still on the menu as well. The team is also something, and the service is something that I absolutely adore. They take the time to get to know you. They enjoy getting to know you as a person. They remember your name, and they remember they're allowed to have fun and interact with the guests, which is something that I absolutely love. It's not all sort of ma'am and sir and P's and Q's. There are different fitness and spa facilities on board. You'll find a gym on the vessels if you really feel like that adventurous, as well as pools as well. The pool there on the left is actually on Le Commodore Charcot, and it's salt water that's heated by the ship's engines, which is pretty special. So you can imagine it's quite neat to be able to be in salt water that's just recirculated through the engines to make it a nice warm spa. Every evening you get a program on your bed. This is how you figure out what you're up for the next day. As I mentioned, it is the nature of expedition that a lot of the time that goes out the window because of the weather or perhaps the wildlife that you've come across, but it gives you an indication of what you can expect the next day. One of my life hacks is always take a highlighter, because my favourite thing to do, I'd climb into bed with a cup of tea and I'd sit there and I'd highlight what I was interested in and for the next day. And as well as the activities and adventures off the ship, there's always options and lectures and things on board. And it really is the team. It's the team you're travelling with that make the experience just so much more enjoyable. So you learn so much, and their passion and knowledge and expertise is infectious in a good way, a good infectious. So you're in really, really good hands, and you can tell that they are so passionate and they're so willing to share their passion. They'll be driving your Zodiacs, they'll be doing the lectures, and you can have lunch or dinner with them or what have you, and you do meet the most incredible people. So in between all the off-ship activities, you do get the opportunity to go to the lectures on board. Lecture sounds like you're at university. I mean, I just think they're absolutely incredible talks. So it could be the history, it could be with where you're heading the next day, what the landing site is, it could be about the penguins, it could be about the polar bears, whatever it might be. But it's always relevant to what you've either experienced that day or what's happening the next day. With Penant, there is light entertainment. A lot of the other expedition companies don't have any other entertainment, but with Penant, they call it light entertainment. So you do have an incredible range of live singers and musicians on board. But I also think that the best entertainment is the fact that it's open bridge. So no matter what time of the day or night, you can actually head up to the bridge and see where you're going, have a look at the charts, and dare I say, understand how these incredible vessels work. I always get people, when I catch up with them at expos and different events, say, oh no, perhaps I'm too old for that. Well, I'd like to introduce you to two of my good friends, Tanya and Marge. I was fortunate enough to do Antarctica with one of them and the subantarctic islands with the others, with the other one, Marge. They're both over 80. I think age is but a number. They were both agile enough. They didn't necessarily do every activity and hike, but it certainly doesn't mean that you have to be young or you have to be of a certain age to enjoy these destinations. And Antarctica, to be honest, is it's not as active as you think. Kimberley, for instance, is a region that you do need a higher level of activity and fitness for. A lot of people also have a fear of the Zodiacs. They think, oh gosh, I'm not going to be able to get in and out of a Zodiac. Let me tell you, there are people there on board the ship, and it's their job to make sure you get in and out safely. So what always happens is the boat will come alongside, and our two gorgeous guys in the blue jackets, their job is to get you in and out safely. So you just use a simple SADAS grip, and they'll get you in and out. We had people on walking canes, People who weren't so steady on their feet, trust me, they do not let go of you. And if you can get in and out of a vehicle, you can get in and out of a Zodiac for sure. You're always going to be equipped with the right gear as well, so don't panic. Through your friends at World Travellers will certainly help you with the right equipment that you need to take. And of course, the vessel provides you with the other equipment as well. If you're going to go kayaking, they lend you all the gear. But we've got these tip sheets and helpful hints to make sure that you're going along prepared. And it doesn't mean that you have to go to Kathmandu and spend thousands of dollars to get yourself up for it. When it comes to small ship and these amazing adventures, I think there's a few key things that you really need to understand. And the first thing is it's all about discovering the destination. As I said earlier, one of our captains loves saying, the show is outside. The show is outside. So you're there to actually discover the destination. Pricing's inclusive. I put a little star there. If you're not someone who enjoys a happy hour drink, then that's easy. We'll put you on a vessel where drinks aren't fully inclusive. You don't want to be subsidising someone else's happy hour. Activity-wise, the same thing can go as well. You can be rest assured you are going to be visiting small ports and remote locations, often where no one else has been that season or even ever. It's an educational experience. The lady on the left is actually a NASA scientist. We're now friends on social media, but never in my life did I think that I'd ever be having lunches and dinners with a NASA scientist. And you just learn so much. You're involved in citizen science. You're actually making a difference to the way that some of the stats and some of the research is done. You're going to be traveling with experts. If you do want to go on something that's photography themed or perhaps has a particular theme to the voyage, absolutely, you can do that. But regardless, as I mentioned earlier, there's experts on board who specialise in the destination, and you can guarantee that there's no queues. There won't be an umbrella showing you where to go. It's definitely informal and relaxed on board. You don't want to be out exploring during the day and feel like you have to come back and put your tiara on for dinner. So, my most popular footwear that I wore on the Commodore Charcot, which is the world's only luxury icebreaker, were my Ugg boots. Needless to say, I did get new Ugg boots for the venture. But you've got to be comfortable. You've got to be, you're there to experience your destination and dressing up for dinner. There are a couple of ships if that's your cup of tea, but regardless, it's more about being comfortable and making the most of the days that you're out. Value for money for sure, certainly with the experiential things, as well as the way you're looked after when it comes to the dining and what have you. And it's pretty obvious itineraries have to be flexible. The day we came across 68 polar bears, we weren't going anywhere. The evening in Antarctica when we came across the humpback whales bubble net feeding, we weren't going anywhere. A lot of the time it's the wildlife, it's the weather and the ice that dictate what you do, and you don't suddenly have your captain looking at his watch going, oh gosh, got to be elsewhere right now. So you're there for the wildlife, and the weather and ice will decide where you go. As I mentioned earlier as well, there's an open bridge policy, which is really neat. That room's got the best view on the vessel, that's for sure. And my favourite time of the day was to wake up, make a coffee and wander up and say, right, where are we going? Where do we go overnight? What are we doing? And the captain and the crew and the guys up there, or the officers, they love it. They love having you there as well. So they're very passionate about sharing their office with you. So whether you want to head to the polar regions or if you do want to head to the warmer tropics, just remember that small ship and expedition cruising is an incredible way to see the world. You're in amazing hands when it comes to the team at World Travellers. They're very, very experienced, very knowledgeable, and their expertise is awesome. They can put together everything you need to make your voyage, to make your adventure what it is, and we sort of sit in the background as small ship and expedition experts. So you've got the confidence that we're here working alongside your consultants and brokers to make sure it's an adventure for you that is exactly what you're wanting, and hopefully ticks your bucket list. So there you go. That's the polar regions in a nutshell. I could go on for another 3 hours, but I know Sarah's got dinner getting prepared by her teenagers. And
Oh, Sarah, thank you so much. Huge respect to you for doing polar plunges at either end of the globe. That's absolutely amazing. But just to be able to understand the history and the culture, whether it's bears versus penguins, all the different expedition options. There's a lot to sort of wrap your head around, isn't there? So it's just been really good to be able to break it all down with your experiences to just get the nuts and bolts of what each of those polar regions can offer. But I think that the common denominator with both of them, as you say, the show is outside. So that's the absolute crux of it, isn't it? So very green with envy that you've been to all those amazing places and had all those experiences. Thank you for sharing them. So does anyone have any questions for Sarah this evening? It's a lot to take in, but do keep in touch with us. We'd love to help you make your decision, whether it's the Antarctic or the Arctic. Big decisions to make. So we would like to be able to help you with those, knowing that we've got Sarah's team backing us up with the um, first-hand knowledge and experience of those amazing places. Yeah. So thank you so much, Sarah.
oh,
And,
pleasure. Thank you so much. And yeah, look forward to help crafting some adventures. I think the main thing is understand your why you want to go to these places, and then that's when we help you out with the where and the when and the who and the how and the rest of it. But you're in wonderful hands with your team, Linda, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that's the wrap for this evening. Thank you for joining us, and I'm sure we'll all go to bed tonight with our heads buzzing with the exciting choices that we've got to make.